I've dealt with it, obviously. Those of you that follow my career with music, I've had those hit pieces wrote about me by supposed, really, and it's a bunch of social justice advocates, supposed metal guys, right?
Ah,
When they're not that really at all. And yeah, I guess there has been an increase. Is it because of the blend of, because even though it shouldn't be like that when you consider the origin of even like punk rock, right? But that has trended left, unfortunately. And you've seen some weird stuff like that recently with metal as well. What is your perspective on this? I don't want to call it. No, I do want to call it more of an infestation. And we've talked about it before privately, and I will talk about it here. And how that, especially that collectivistness and that social justice bullshit, is antithetical to what metal is about, right?
yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, man. I think it would be a good thing to start this defining our reasoning for us to think that heavy metal is antagonistic to woke values.
Yeah,
So to me, it's not like heavy metal is like this fixed piece of rules and regulations that if you're a metalhead you need to follow. By no means, but when you live and you hang around metalheads, you start noticing certain patterns that metalheads and fans of heavy metal, fans of the most different kinds and most different subgenres of heavy metal, you start noticing certain patterns on the way they live their lives and on the way that they behave. And that's uh, while observing that, I hang around lots of metalheads. It's like most of my best friends are metalheads, and I
hmm,
have all kinds of metalhead friends from the guys who enjoy like extreme forms of metal like death metal and black metal, from those type of guys to more 80s hair metal guys, and also the nerdy kind of guy who enjoys gent and progressive metal. I've met them all,
yeah,
and there are patterns, more specifically three patterns. I guess you could call them pillars of the heavy metal culture. I would call them pillars of the heavy metal attitude that I see. I can brush through them, and then if you want, we can talk about each of them individually. But number one, I would say it's strength.
mm,
Metal, it's like a musical personification, a musical manifestation of strength, like the punchiness and rawness of the drums
oh yeah,
mixed with the power and the size, the hugeness of the bass and the screaming guitars and the soaring vocals, or the deep monster like extreme vocals, which is something that you do better than me. It's like a manifestation of power, of musical power, and the fans end up manifesting the that sort of strength in the other aspects of their lives too. The way I see it, in my opinion, those are often people who are very emotionally strong, and they display several levels of mental toughness. So that's what I would call the number one pillar of heavy metal. Number two, it's self
oh
sufficiency.
yeah,
Often metalheads are like they are very independent minded. It's
absolutely.
not it's not to say that they are necessarily like lone wolves that hate people and hate being around people, but if it comes to a point that they need to count in not no one else but themselves, they will deal with that, and they will often thrive in that. So number one was strength. Number two is self-sufficiency. Number three is freedom.
Mm,
That's what I will call, and those three pillars, they tie in beautifully amongst
absolutely,
themselves
absolutely.
in a way that one feeds of themselves of the other. But freedom, it's like all the expressions of shockingness, and like dressing out in black and having piercings and tattoos, and the sex drug, sex, and rock and roll attitude. All of that are displays of the attitude of I go my own way. I walk my own way. I tread my own path. I don't care what you think of the road I walk in, and I don't care about the road you walk in. As long as you're not hurting me, I will not hurt you. So with that definition, which is of course all my opinion based on my personal observations, as I said, it's not a set of rules, but based on those patterns that I personally observed, you could be able to say very with much certainty that wokeness it's the complete nemesis
Yes.
of all of those aspects. Going back to strength, we see those woke people like victimizing themselves and
All the
crying
time.
and looking for things to be offended by on Twitter, and sort of like there's an effort to be weak. It's not even a not trying to be strong. There's an effort in the opposite direction.
That's a good point.
And also self-sufficiency. It's a collective philosophy. Wokeness, when a woke person looks at Ripa, he doesn't see Ripa, he doesn't see Eric July, he sees a representative of the black community.
Yeah.
When a woke guy looks at Dan Vasc, he doesn't see Daniel, he sees a representative of the South American community. It's all about the collective overpowering the individual.
Facts.
Completely antithetical to self-sufficiency, to the idea of self-sufficient, of a self-sufficient individual that Metal proposes. And in freedom, I guess it's not really hard to talk about that. Woke philosophy is all about you sacrificing your individual freedoms for the greater good, for the greater good of the collective, based on the previous points that we spoke of. So yeah, man, based on that, that's why I think a woke heavy metal makes as much sense as a Nazi Jew.
Yeah.
It's like it's just you're basically saying to me, hey, that fire is wet.
Yeah.
Hey, today's a cold, warm day. It makes no sense. A woke metalhead is like that. It's just a self-defeating, a self-denying expression.
And man, you put that so perfectly, and I do believe that's why. I mean, between both of ourselves being obviously like libertarian, and I think that's why a lot of guys that I've met in the scene, as far as that are true to metal, are tend to adopt from a political philosophy more freedom-minded concepts, which is why it's quite hilarious to see these wokesters, right, to parade themselves around as if they are what embodies what is metal, and I just have to disagree wholeheartedly. Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios. Next up, possibly our most anticipated book thus far, Yaira.